Genesis 38, 1 through 30. In Devotional Focus Verse. Then said Judah to Tamar his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow at thy father's house till Shelah my son be grown. For he said, Lest peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. Genesis 38, 11. Broken promises have consequences. Failing to keep commitments, even those made in private, will have an effect on those around us. When Ethel Hodson was in high school, her father's craving for alcohol caused him to lose a good job and leave their home. In time, he sent her mother $40 and promised, more when possible, God bless you all. When no more money came, his family knew that he had broken his promise. Ethel relates in her testimony that the family lacked the things they needed, so that broken promise had an impact. It resulted in hardship and sorrow for everyone involved. Happily, that is not the end of Ethel's story. While staying in a cheap hotel in a rundown area of Portland, Oregon, her father heard some music. Following the sound, he listened to a group of people on a street corner telling about Jesus and the change he could make in a person's life. Ethel's father prayed and was saved, and his life was transformed. He obtained a job and then began to fulfill his promise by sending money to his family on the East Coast. In time, his wife was persuaded to bring the children to Portland, where their family was reunited. Ethel, a great-grandmother now, is a witness to how God can help a person keep his promises. In the focus verse, Judah made a promise to his daughter-in-law, but he did not keep it. In the culture of his time, he was to arrange for her to marry his third son, and he indicated his intention to do this. When his daughter-in-law saw that he was not following through, she set about to reveal his negligence. The consequences were heartbreaking and long-lasting. Promises should be kept. We need to follow through on what we tell our children, grandchildren, or other family members we will do. Business agreements and contracts need to be honored too. We must stand behind our word, and therefore it is wise to be cautious in what we promise. If we fulfill our agreements, our family, friends, and associates will be spared the detrimental effects that accompany broken promises, and God will be glorified. Background information. This chapter gives the history of the family of Judah, which is important because the nation would one day carry his name, and also because Christ would come through his lineage. While the events in this chapter seem to interrupt the story of Joseph, scholars hold varying positions regarding the time frame. Some researchers believe that Genesis 38 gives the account of Judah during the years just following Joseph being sold into Egypt. Others think that the events of this chapter took place before or near the time of the episodes in chapter 34. It is possible that Jacob's sons and grandsons married in their early to mid-teen years. Wherever this account fits in the chronology, it illustrates the potential harm of the Canaanite influence that surrounded Jacob's family. Adullam was a town about 15 or 20 miles northwest of Hebron, which was Jacob's home. Judah would have known the importance Abraham's family placed on not marrying Canaanite women, but he ignored those values when he chose Shelah as his wife. The Canaanite influence from Shelah and her family must have been responsible in part for the wickedness of Judah's sons. Levirate marriage was a custom that many ancient cultures in that area followed. Webster defines levirate as the sometimes compulsory marriage of a widow to a brother of her deceased husband. The purpose was to provide for the widow and preserve the name of the brother who had passed away. Legally, the children of this marriage belonged to the deceased man, not the birth father. After the death of his elder sons, and Onan, Judah indicated his daughter-in-law would be given to his third son, Shelah, once he was old enough. When Tamar saw that Judah was not keeping his word, she set out to entrap him. In the Canaanite culture, sheep shearing included feasts and extravagant entertainments. Tamar heard where Judah had gone to shear sheep and that his wife was dead, so she went there dressed as a prostitute. The original word translated harlot in verse 15 was zonah and indicated a common harlot. The word kadisha is also translated harlot in verses 21 through 22 and was a term used for temple prostitutes. Whichever role Tamar assumed, her scheme was successful. The collateral Tamar required until payment could be made was Judah's signet, bracelets, and staff. See verse 18. Signets of that time were cylinder shaped with a carved seal. The bracelets were cords that went through the center of the signet so it could be worn about a person's neck. The staff was likely engraved and was a leadership symbol. These were Judah's personal items which gave clear proof of his identity. 3 months later, when Judah learned Tamar was with child, he called for her execution. When she identified him as the father, he admitted his guilt. He knew he had broken his promise to have his son Shelah marry her. In verse 26, the Hebrew word tzedekah, that is translated righteous, has a legal sense. According to the Levirate custom, she had a right to have a child by her deceased husband's relative. Verses 27 through 30 tell of the birth of Tamar's twin sons. God's plan to send his son Jesus Christ through Judah's lineage was not altered because of this immoral act. See Matthew 1:3. Conclusion. God can help us to be true to our word. Let's make keeping our promises a priority.
Genesis chapter 38. And it came to pass at that time, that Judah went down from his brethren, and turned into a certain Adullamite, whose name was Hirah. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua, and he took her, and went in unto her. And she conceived, and bare a son, and he called his name And she conceived again, and bare a son, and she called his name Onan. And she yet again conceived, and bare a son, and called his name Shelah, and he was at Chezib, when she bare him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. And Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. And Judah said unto Onan, Go in unto thy brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his, and it came to pass, when he went in unto his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord, wherefore he slew him also. Then said Judah to Tamar his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow at thy father's house, till Shelah my son be grown, for he said, Lest peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. And in process of time the daughter of Shua Judah's wife died, and Judah was comforted, and went up unto his sheepshearers to Timnath, he and his friend Hirah the Adullamite. And it was told Tamar, saying, Behold thy father-in-law goeth up to Timnath to shear his sheep. And she put her widow's garments off from her, and covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place, which is by the way to Timnath, for she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given unto him to wife. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be an harlot, because she had covered her face. And he turned unto her by the way, and said, Go to, I pray thee, let me come in unto thee, for he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law, and she said, What wilt thou give me, that thou mayest come in unto me? And he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, Wilt thou give me a pledge, till thou send it? And he said, What pledge shall I give thee? And she said, Thy signet, and thy bracelets, and thy staff that is in thine hand. And he gave it her, and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. And she arose, and went away, and laid by her veil from her, and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend the Adullamite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. Then he asked the men of that place, saying, Where is the harlot, that was openly by the wayside? And they said, There was no harlot in this place. And he returned to Judah, and said, I cannot find her, and also the men of the place said, that there was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, Let her take it to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her. And it came to pass about 3 months after, that it was told Judah, saying, Tamar thy daughter-in-law hath played the harlot, and also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, Bring her forth, and let her be burnt. When she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, By the man, whose these are, am I with child? And she said, Discern, I pray thee, whose are these, the signet, and bracelets, and staff. And Judah acknowledged them, and said, She hath been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Shelah my son. And he knew her again no more. And it came to pass in the time of her travail, that, behold, twins were in her womb. And it came to pass, when she travailed, that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, This came out first. And it came to pass, as he drew back his hand, that, behold, his brother came out, and she said, How hast thou broken forth? This breach be upon thee. Therefore his name was called Pharez. And afterward came out his brother, that had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zara.